1. Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, what we experience early on in the formative years of our life shape the way of who we are and the perspectives we have towards the latter end of our life, inasmuch as the anchor point of what we experience is quite relevant. This is a debate about fulfillment, self actualization, and happiness, and comparing the perspective we have on both sides of the house. Because we acknowledge that on both sides, we want to be able to have a life that is happy and meaningful, inasmuch as both good and bad happen to us. But what we believe and are motivated by on side proposition is that the means, motivation, and capacity to be able to live life and do things at the point in which we are healthy and able bodied in our formative years shape the perspective we have towards the latter part of our life when we're likely on both sides to be retrospective, trying to be able to find meaning, and on both sides gravitating towards at some point dying because we're not immortal. On both sides, we're gonna die. So it's a matter of which saga or part of our life comes first or comes later. And we believe that on side proposition, all of these harms or inabilities to experience certain things when we get sick or go into cognitive decline actually are bad, but the things that we establish earlier on, like having the money and capacity to be able to go out with our peers and friends, of which we're also youthful, are ultimately important. A few features of our model which we think are relevant in this debate to clearly define what the difference is between proposition and opposition. On-side proposition, with life A of descending happiness, we believe that while you are younger, you have the disposition to be able to make the most out of your life. You are able-bodied, you're mentally sound, and you also have the emotional capacity at the point in which other people in your life, like your family and friends, are also still around. It kind of sucks if you're not able to spend time with your parents, your siblings, your friends, because, for instance, maybe you are sick, maybe you're going through chronic anxiety and depression, or maybe even debilitated in some way, shape, or form. That is to say, exclusively on our side of the house, there's a quite important nuance to your formative years at the point in which people are still literally alive and available to hang out with you. And at the point in which you're also younger, you have more energy, you have more availability, and more means to be able to go out and do these experiences. Inasmuch as I acknowledge that on side proposition, with this descending happiness, bad things happen later on. Maybe you get quite sick, maybe people don't like you, or they have their own lives to live, etc. You always have that anchor point of your youth to be able to explain that I was able to experience these kinds of things. In as much as we also experience and understand the hubris of youth and how people can make mistakes, variety is the spice of life, and your ability to literally be able to do more things at the point in which you're younger and more able lubricates your ability to deal with the absence of these things in the latter part of your life. I'll take your point of information. Go ahead.
When your entire childhood was happiness, how do you then expect the person to then have a understanding that their lives, when they are facing trouble, will still default back to their happy?
It's because you already know what it's like to have money. You already know what it's like to literally go out and touch grass and see your friends. You've already experienced these kinds of things. That is to say, on our side, sure, you might be disappointed, you might be left alone, but what you were able to establish and maximize sets you already on a higher experiential capacity, even if these things go away. I'll talk about the comparative. So the second part of this speech is talking about the opposition comparative. Meaning, on their side, yeah, sure man, you experience happiness in the end, etc. But the problem here is that the lens of you looking at the happiness and things that you have is likely to be self-centered. You have a chip on your shoulder, you have something to be able to prove precisely because you came from so much suffering. Meaning, the way in which you're likely to carry this out in your life and the way that you're likely to do that to other people, even if you are comfortable, even if things are clear to you, even if you're fulfilled, is always going to have you as a reference point. In as much as, yes, you were able to overcome that difficulty, the narrative of how you look at your life and exercise the latter part of your life is very much more inclined to be all about your pursuits. Yeah, sure, you're socially fulfilled, you have a legacy, you have friends, but that anchor point creates a chip on your shoulder which undermines your ability to really be able to be happy even if you have every capacity to do so. On our side, because you're able to experience these things later on, you're more likely to be able to not take these things for granted. There are three impacts you get on side proposition. Number one, while being young, you're able to experience more things, therefore having an opportunity cost to life at the point in which you're literally able to maximize your youth when you're able-bodied before you debilitate. Number two, the values that you experience in your formative years are better able to allow you to reflect and introspect at the point in which bad things happen to you in the tail end of your life. And thirdly, the anchor point of happiness and experience on side proposition, which you do experience first, is able to lubricate and give meaning to the experiences that you have. And for all of these reasons, we are very proud to open this debate and stand on side proposition.